folks, Mr. G here again with another educational video. This week we're going to be talking about inequalities. Now we've talked a little bit about inequalities before. This word just means whenever we're talking about numbers that are bigger or smaller than other numbers when we're comparing the size. The symbols that we use are this, 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 and this. So let's do a quick refresher on what these mean. If I have a statement like, I have more than 5 apples, and I'll call x the number of apples we have. We don't know how many there are, but what we do know is that it's bigger than 5. And this is how we would write that. This symbol means bigger than. When we went over this earlier in the year, a helpful way to think about this is to imagine this symbol is some monster or a crocodile, and this monster always wants to eat whatever's bigger. So if the number of apples is bigger than 5, our monster wants to eat our number of apples, which we called x. So x could be any number that's bigger than 5. 7, 10, 15 all work. X can't be any number that's less than or equal to 5. So it couldn't be 1, it couldn't be 3. It also can't be 5 because we have more than 5 apples. If we do something similar with our next example, you have less than 4 jackets. If we call x the number of jackets, we would write it like this. Again, our monster is eating 4 because 4 is bigger than the number of jackets. So x could be a number like 0, 2, 3. X can't be a number that is equal or bigger, so it couldn't be 10. It can't be 5. It couldn't be 4 either. We know it's less than 4. Our next statement, the temperature will be -3 degrees Celsius or higher. If we call x the temperature, then x needs to be bigger than or equal to -3. So in this case, x could be some number bigger than this, like -1 or 7 or 0. It could also be equal, like -3. It can't be smaller. If you remember, smaller negative numbers have a bigger value. So something like -7 or -10, x couldn't be that. It can't be less than -3. For our last one here, I will have 5.5 or fewer vacation days. If we call x the number of vacation days, this symbol means that x is smaller than or equal to 5.5, because we know it's 5.5 or fewer. So x could be any number smaller than that, like 2 or 4.1. It could also be equal to 5.5 exactly. X can't be bigger, so it couldn't be 6, couldn't be 6.9, it couldn't be 9.25. Nothing bigger than 5.5. One other way we can represent these inequalities visually is by graphing them. Let's go back to our first example here and graph it on a number line. When you graph an inequality, we start off with this number 5. This number 5 is very important, and we put a circle above it. Now x is bigger than 5, so we're going to draw an arrow to the right here, and that tells us that x can be bigger than 5. We leave this circle empty to show that it can't be equal to 5, but it can be anything that's bigger. We can do something similar with example 2 here. Again, the important number is 4, so we'll draw a circle above 4. But now it's smaller than 4, so we draw an arrow in the opposite direction. Again, we leave it empty because it can't be equal to 4, but it can be anything that's smaller. Our important number in this example is -3, so again, we draw a circle above -3. It can be bigger than or equal to -3, so we draw an arrow to the right to show it can be bigger, and we color it in to show that it can be equal to -3. So this would be our answer if we were asked to graph it. For our last example, the important number is 5.5, so halfway between 5 and 6. We draw a circle. We know it needs to be smaller, so we go off to the left, and we shade it in to show that it can also be equal to 5.5. That's the end of our first video on graphing inequalities. If you want to try out some questions before you watch part 2, here are my suggestions. So you can try out those questions or stick around for the next video. See you then.